did your mother have a job, or did she work at home? She worked with Grandpa Vrana. He was a tailor, came over from the old country in Czechoslovakia. My mother was about, I think, 9 or 12 when they got here, and she remembers opening the store with Grandpa, opening their tailor shop for the first time. They were kind of scared. They opened it in Berea. They hung their little shingle out and rented a small room in one of the shops downtown, and eventually she tells the story, or she did tell the story. I wish I had it on tape also in her words, but it was just phenomenal the way she describes the fears and anxieties and then the slow successes as the shop started to become a local success. And that's where she worked. She worked with my grandpa pretty much part-time. Ralph and Jerry, her brothers, worked there part-time also. And I think Grandma Vrana worked there too. I enjoyed that part about my youth. Going to visit the tailor shop, going to visit Grandma, or going to visit Grandpa in the tailor shop. Visiting anyone that was there, because it was a fun place to be. Grandpa always had, a quarter or 50 cents to give us just for showing up. So I thought, hey, this is a great place to come visit. But besides that, it was the happy atmosphere and just a fun place to be. Every time we were down at the tailor shop and we were getting ready to leave, Grandpa would always ask for his schmutzer. He had to have a little peck on the cheek. So we would give him his schmutzer and off we would go. If I was downtown with some of my friends, I would usually just go stop in and they would be somewhere else. But, then I'd go find my bike wherever I dumped it and I'd be off and running again. Grandpa always smelled good. He smelled like not a real strong scented cologne, but he always had a little musty air about him, and that I think is because of all the moisture and so forth associated with the tailor shop. It was a musty little hole in the wall by itself anyway, but there's a lot of steam and so forth in the pressing and cleaning industry, and so that maybe had something to do with it. But it was a great place to be, and Grandpa was friends with everybody in town. Everybody would come in and pick up their cleaning or drop some off, or some tailoring, and Grandpa would have a good comment for them or an argument for them of some sort. And there were several people that he argued with constantly, but it was in the name of friendship. They would just argue and argue and argue, and at the end of the argument, okay, see you tomorrow, Jake. And that was it. Not doing too well. I'm only on page 20, and this book goes up to about 200. So we'll see how we do here. What was my favorite sport or outdoor activity? Okay, and why was it my favorite? Well, I liked to play football as a young kid. I liked to play it because I was good at it. I was a skinny little kid, and several of my friends were not so skinny. And I could probably move a little bit better than they could, so therefore maybe that's why I liked football. I could run a little bit faster than some of them. But I liked all kinds of games. We would play a lot of times flashlight tag. and that would, of course, be in the summertime at night, and you had to, shine a flashlight on somebody to get them. And we used to play kick the can. That was fun. That was a big time fun game where you go hide and then come back and kick the can and you were home free. And we play red light, green light. That was a fun game. All of these were played with the smell of fresh cut grass. I can picture it hiding along the grapes, running through the backyards. It was a fun time. Did you pray as a young boy? Do you remember a specific prayer or thought of any specific prayer? I don't remember any specific prayer. I would always say a prayer at night. And then I would always say the Our Father after that. And try to put meaning to each. Try to put a pictorial meaning to each phrase and word in it to where I could relate to it, because it seemed to be something that was way beyond me. So I tried to bring it down to my level. But I did have a picture of Jesus in a plastic, there's a bookmarker, I believe, in a plastic bound envelope or holder. And I think it's still around here somewhere. I used to keep it under my mattress as a young boy and on it to a teenager, just to have it, and to sometimes hold it when I was saying a prayer. But my mother got it for me because I asked her if there was something that I could get that wouldn't get beat up, like just a cardboard picture. And she found me that. And I think I still have it somewhere to this day. As a boy, I grew up in Berea, Ohio, 593 Fair Street. When we first moved there, I believe there are pictures, or maybe Joyce has them, of the house. And there weren't too many on the street. We were one of the few, one of the few houses on that end of the street. And it was a great place to live. I grew up with friends around me. Like I say, no one particular fascinating thing in that neighborhood, but just a good, secure feeling of friends and family. And the next question is, describe your grandparents and what did you enjoy most about them? Well, I described them a little bit prior to this question. But my grandmother, she was always caring kind of person, and every time if I was over there, usually a week out of every summer as a kid, I would spend a week over there and do things with them. And they would, we'd walk downtown, which wasn't very far, and go shopping and so forth, and she would buy me something, as grandparents do, and give me something a little extra special to play with that week. And I remember one time getting some knights with horses, a little plastic set of them or something. But the biggest fun I had was Grandma always had a bunch of old bottles and things out in the garage or the back section of the driveway. She had a big, huge, long driveway. On one side of the driveway was all flower gardens and circles with bird baths, and on the other side of the driveway was the house and a small part of the yard. And around that section of the yard there was a trellis fence that Dad and Grandpa, and I think Ralph, helped build when Dad was laid off one time. but it was a beautiful little trellis fence with a little love seat going into the prune orchard, small prune orchard they have. So that was nice. And there are some pictures around somewhere showing all that. But there were a lot of little bottles and things to play with, and a sand pile to fill them with sand, and to dump them out, and to pretend you're making and baking and things like that. Usually during that time, one of my cousins, Leslie or Vicky, was over there also. So we'd have a good time just being cousins at Grandma's house together. And she would bake for us, and she would always cook for us. And we'd normally throughout the years we'd go there on Sunday evening anyway, just to visit. And Grandpa and Dad would sit on the front porch and have a shot, or maybe two. Oftentimes then they'd be inside watching TV, sleeping. But for the most part, we'd be over there to eat supper, and Grandpa would have chicken or schnitzler, which I believe is a breaded veal, and Pepsi in the old glass bottles, and dill pickles, and that would be pretty much supper. It was a great way to spend a Sunday evening. Oftentimes I didn't really want to go, but I always was glad that I did go. And then, of course, Thanksgiving and Christmas was always spent at Grandma's house. And they were just kind, good, hardworking people. They lived at, I think it was 253 Bevan Street, or 353 Bevan Street in Berea, and they built that house. They moved from Czechoslovakia to Berea, and they had a sponsor, and their sponsor, I think, was Sauerbrei. I'm not sure. It's listed on their import papers who their sponsor is. But anyway, they moved to an old house first, and then they bought the property, and then they built a new house next to the old house, and then tore the old house down. And there are some pictures around also to validate that.